Hey guys, Kyle the Dead Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for Attack on Titan Season 3, Episode 10, and ooh boy, what a fucking episode. I'll start off by saying this, I'll get into more details about this particular aspect later, but I think it's a good thing that this particular season is 24 episodes, because if it wasn't, I'm pretty sure people would be fucking pissed off by pretty much the way that this episode ended. Like, yeah, like I remember pretty much reading that. I remember pretty much reading that one panel in the manga, and I was like, I have to wait an entire month to find out what's next. Like, yeah, like, but here, luckily, we only have to wait until next week to find out what's next. Like, yeah, like I think if this was only 10 episodes, I think people would be royally pissed off. But like pretty much that kind of a tease. But yeah, but anyway, so now that I've calmed down, so we in this episode we get Kenny's backstory, and while I do believe Wit Studios did kind of play it a little fast and loose with the adaptation, it still very much got the core message of this entire arc across. Humans are selfish. We just are. It doesn't matter how much we pretty much try and justify how noble our intentions are. Every action we take has a selfish purpose. It doesn't matter how small or big or small or how big that our selfishness is with each action we take. It just there's always going to be a selfish element behind it, especially when we're put in a situation that we become desperate to pretty much where we become desperate in many respects, like how Kenny was. How Kenny was to pretty much to survive when he basically met Uri in this episode, and I think Kenny summed it up perfectly. Alcohol, women, religion, family, dreams, power. These are basically all things that we are essentially drunk on out of an innate desire to find reason for our existence, and they're pretty much all, and yet at the same time, they're all things that whether or not you see them as good or bad, we can't help but crave. And like as Kenny put it too, we can't help but crave, and even as Kenny put it, enslave ourselves to them. Like these are basically the basic tenets of human desire, because it's just part of what makes us human beings, and that's really all this arc was driven on: humanity's selfish desires. Because if you really look at this whole arc, like if you really look at at this whole thing, if you look at everything, there pretty much there really was no good or bad guy in it all. There just wasn't. It was basically just humans acting on their desires. That's pretty much all it was, and it's really kind of a dark concept when you think that that an arc like this is that stuff like this is in basically is in a shonen series. Like it's actually kind of incredible how much that this actually reflects our own desires, and it doesn't matter how much we even try to hide it. These basically are things that we as humans would do in a situation like that. Of course, seeing how this is Kenny's backstory too, naturally this is also, of course, seeing how this backstory is also, and of course going back to Kenny, it's really kind of funny how he spent his whole life, all this backstory basically goes, like he spends his whole life searching for a purpose, and yet he kind of already found it twice. The pretty much first time was his friendship with Uri, and the second is when he chose to raise his nephew Levi. And yeah, that reveal brings a whole new tragic element to the entire tragedy that already was Levi's backstory. I mean, living with a prostitute as your mother in this world is already not the safest, probably. But if you think about it, had Kenny pretty much not shown up when he did, Levi probably would have died with his mother then and there. So, yeah, in a lot of ways, he pretty much already formed. Whether he was basically denying, in a lot of ways, he was trying. Pretty much the only thing that really kept in a lot of ways, pretty much throughout this entire backstory, without even realizing it, pretty much Kenny was was pretty much acting, pretty much the closest thing to pretty much the father that Levi had, because he the reason why he did all this is pretty much is to just try and keep pretty much Levi as far away from from what he pretty much does as possible. Like he like I think Kenny pretty much knew of all the dangers that came with being like the lapdog of the true royalty. So he just wanted to keep Levi pretty much safe away from all that. But in the end, it still kind of ended up happening when Levi ended up joining the Scouts. And of course, seeing how this is also Kenny's backstory, naturally, this is also, like I said, kind of Levi's backstory as well. And one thing I liked, aside from everything else that we got, what I just mentioned, I do like how this fills in the gaps of what Levi's life was like, even before the like the Levi side story. I think it was no regrets, a choice with no regrets, and in a lot of ways, looking at how Levi was as a kid, it's funny to see how similar he was to Aaron. Although the difference at the core, I think, is environment. Levi pretty much grew up in the slums, so he's forced to act that way, while Aaron, despite growing up in a town guarded by Titans, still had a more peaceful life than Levi. So really the only reason the only difference between them is that and just the way that they pretty much chose to act. And it really all comes down to one event when you really look at it. So with this episode, pretty much the Uprising Arc has essentially concluded. So that means the remainder of this season will be focusing on the Return to Shiganshina arc, which pretty much takes solace for any of you guys out there who are craving more Titan action. This next arc very much returns to the status quo with plenty of Titan action to go around, and at least if that ending is anything to go off of. And yeah, let's just take a brief break and talk about that ending, because yeah, it's like I said, I had the same hype feeling that pretty much I did when I read the manga with that scene. In fact, if anything, the music and the voice acting just kind of hyped me up even more. And yeah, it's like I said, I think it's a good thing that this season is 24 episodes. Otherwise, people would basically say an F you with studio for ending it like that. Like, it's an incredible cliffhanger. And so essentially this is gonna be the Scouts fighting both Reiner, Bertolt, and this mystery man. And right now we're basically heading into a portion of Attack on Titan that is going to start acting a lot like puzzle pieces. Like we're slowly starting to get more and more puzzle pieces, and with this next arc, there's going to be so many reveals, so many shit. Like, I'm hyped. Like I'm as a manga reader, I want to spill all this shit, but I don't want to for all the anime onlys out there. It's insane reveal after insane reveal from here. And as a manga now, overall, in terms of like with this arc ending, with this arc coming to an end, I can say that while this arc was a little lacking in earlier portions compared to its manga counterpart, I think overall it was a pretty solid adaptation, and from what I've seen so far, this arc has definitely gotten a little more love in anime form. Although I think a lot of that pretty much comes down to scheduling. I think like anime onlys. Let's just say that you guys were basically lucky enough in order to get all this, in order to get this content weekly. With us manga readers, we basically had to wait monthly for pretty much each chapter of this arc, and yeah, so in a way, it's one of those things where I think the anime guys, it's one of those things where the anime was that they definitely got a better deal. Although I'd also be lying if I said that. Looking back, that this arc was definitely a lot more detailed than the manga. Although, like I said, I think a lot of it just is in the first part. The second part, I think, was mostly pretty good adaptation wise. I think. And yeah, anime only just count yourself lucky that in that regard, because manga version of this arc was hell to get through every month. But yeah, guys, that's my review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter and Facebook. And also AniList and Crunchyroll. Dead Night Anime, signing off. Later, guys.